Welcome to the first episode of the new and improved Halliday Wine Companion Podcast, presented by Langtons. My name is Anna Webster, and I'm the Halliday editor and now the host of this podcast. I can't wait to get stuck into a range of wine adjacent and drinks-related topics with some fascinating guests over the next few weeks, months, and hopefully years. First up is Melanie Chester, head winemaker and GM at Yarra Valley Winery Giant Steps, and full disclosure, a good mate of mine. Today we're going to talk about what it takes to win Winery of the Year, single vineyards, the new Circle of Fifths range, and what lies ahead before finishing with some fun quickfire questions. Welcome, Mel. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Anna.
Now, I know I promised we wouldn't talk too much about your personal journey because it quote, unquote, gives you the ick. However, I will ask you just for your 2-minute TLDR version, just for a bit of context for our listeners.
So I'm originally, born in New South Wales but raised in South Australia, and my family had connections to the wine industry for a very long time. So while I was that kid at high school that loved science, loved being outdoors, there was always this sort of thing in the back of my mind that maybe the wine industry might be a good place to end up because I love flavour and I loved working outdoors, and sort of got convinced to do my first harvest straight out of high school in McLaren Vale. And just fell in love with it. So then went to university in Adelaide and studied at the Wake campus, or the Roseworthy degree. And sort of straight after that, found myself in Victoria making wine at Seppelt in Great Western under Treasury Wine Estates portfolio, which is really an incredible eye-opening experience into some of the great wine regions of Victoria. And in that time, fell in love making Pinot and Chardonnay. And then sort of that role led me to a tiny little operation in central Victoria called Sutton Grange, which was an incredible farm to be able to sort of look after, and made wine there for about 7 years, and then ended up at Giant Steps at the end of 2021, having previously been a massive fan of the wines and collecting Applejack Pinot for many years and Sexton Chardonnay. Wasn't looking to move jobs, but when this rang, it was sort of the amazing opportunity to come work for one of the great brands and the great wineries of Victoria, and I've been there ever since, and, you know, take the sort of responsibility of looking after something that I used to love and drink a lot of, really seriously, but we have a good time doing it too.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
And since you've been at Giant Steps, you've been crowned, well, in 2025 you were the Halliday Winery of the Year. How did you describe it, the Oscars?
Yeah.
The big one?
It feels like the Oscars, maybe. I feel like, you know, at the Oscars, the Oscar you always want to win is Best Picture. Like Best Director, Best Costume Designer, that's all cool, but Best Picture kind of is a reflection on the collective effort. And it's not just the collective effort of the people that work at Giant Steps now. It's sort of the philosophy and the kind of business that was put in place who then, you know, many, many moons ago. And so it's kind of, it feels like Best Winery or Winery of the Year just really felt like that kind of overarching, you know, award to the whole team and to the whole effort and the effort that it takes to make great wine this year, next year, and all the years past at Giant Steps. So it felt pretty fun. It was good fun.
Because I think it was at 3 consecutive noms in the lead up to the win. So aside from that feeling of actually winning, and then the acknowledgement for the whole team and everyone from finance to marketing to the VD teams and everything else, how has the year been kind of after that point? Like, have you noticed anything different?
It's been incredible. I think the fascinating thing about the brand that is Halliday Companion is that it's got amazing consumer cut through. So, you know, we've got people who still turn up at our tasting room with the book, you know, wanting to taste the wines that, you know, Philip tasted that year or even that James used to taste. So there's incredible recognition of what Winery of the Year means for our consumers, both, you know, new consumers who've never heard of Giant Steps before or our wine club members. Like, they're so proud of us. So there's that amazing, you know, recognition of that. But, you know, and from a business perspective, it's been fabulous. You know, we've had a great year of sales and it's a really tough marketplace out there. So it's been a pretty good feeling from a, you know, production perspective and from day-to-day business operations. It's actually just spurred us on to keep pushing. You know, I think that's one of the things that we said when we were all standing around the day after the awards. Everyone was a bit hungover, a bit crusty. Everyone had a pie in their hand and like a very strong coffee. And we were like, actually, this is incredible reflection on what we've created, but also, you know, let's keep going. Let's keep working. And so it's been fabulous, but we keep hustling and we keep pushing ourselves and working really hard and trying to do the best thing by the beautiful vineyards we get to look after. And yeah, this year, that was just a really nice moment in time to reflect and keep going.
Really like to hear that. It's really nice. Now, obviously, Giant Steps has been a real force since it was founded in 97 and then, you know, reached greater heights under Flymo from 2003 onwards. But somehow you've pushed it even higher. and maybe you could just do a brief overview again for the people who might not know, but an incredible number of years worth of judging experience. Do you reckon that's played a part in terms of your skill as a winemaker?
So I've just finished my third and final year as the chair of judges at Melbourne Wine Show, which is the most important wine show in Australia. And my first wine show was at sort of 22, judging at the National Wine Show under Steve Pannell from South Australia. And he's an incredible palate and an incredibly dynamic personality. And I loved turning up to this wine show and judging with people from all across the country, international judges often, and lots of different vocations, not just winemakers, not just viticulturalists, but journos and communicators and somms. And, I've really enjoyed that part of, the collective effort of sharing a really delicious, glass of wine on trophy day and being really proud of whoever made it. And that feeling of connection and connecting as a panel to a really beautiful glass of wine has been really fun. But it's funny, I find the tasting part of my job one of the things that comes the most instinctively. So I don't know whether it's something that, I'm sure I've honed that skill in over the time at wine shows, because it is quite specific. You've got a very sterile medium. You're not tasting wine like we would when we were sitting at a restaurant. If we were up at Marion having a glass of wine and some salty bread, that wine would taste very different in that medium versus in a wine show medium. So it does require you to really hone that skill set, but it does feel like something that we've sharpened over the years for sure. And it's something that is good because it helps just broaden your communication style. Talking about wine with a bunch of winemakers is really isolating, but wine is just meant to be something yummy that you share. And if you can communicate to different people in a way that is inclusive, I think that's going to be better for the product and at the end of the day, better for you as a person, because you can share that experience more readily.
So when your wines are nearly ready and you're tasting them out of barrel, do you put a bit in the glass and go have it with some salty bread just to be sure?
No, totally, we do. It's crazy. So
how would this taste in a wine show and how would this taste with some salty bread?
But also how does it change? How does it move? One of the things that fascinates me about wine is it's a chemical medium, right? It's first of all, every drop of wine is grown. It's not produced or manufactured. Every drop comes from primary produce as opposed to almost every other beverage. And importantly, the medium does change. The acidity changes over time, the way that the tannins soften over time. All that stuff is fascinating. So the idea that's what I love about wine in some respects is it makes you be very mindful of the glass of wine that's in front of you, because you know that the instant that you're trying it right now will never be the same again, not just because the wine will never be the same again, but because the humidity in the room, the air pressure, the temperature, the smells, the mood, the vibe, all that stuff is never going to... So I feel like wine actually is a really amazing drink that anchors you in that moment of time. But then also when you're trying to put together a blend, you've got to be mindful that it will change, it will move. So often when we've sort of finalised all of our single vineyards or even our Circle of Fifths or Yarra Valley wines down into a single blend, we'll take a little kind of goblet home, all of us, all the team in the winery, and we'll have it over the night. We'll have it with some food. We'll leave it on the bench. I've normally got 3 or 4 kind of sets of wine glasses on my kitchen bench at home, much to my husband's chagrin.
Varying stages of decay.
Yeah, literally. He's I like them over days. I like to get up in the morning and just stick my nose in it and be like, cool, all right, that looks interesting, or I didn't see that part of it. Oh yeah, that's still there. It's kind of weird and experimental.
Is that you or is that all winemakers?
Don't know. I'm sure that all winemakers have a little shot glass bottle in their fridge of some weird blend they tried last week. But
so funny.
It's really it's that taking yourself out of the situation that you're used to always consuming in and making sure that you're just checking it. It's part of, and it's almost like getting to know your mates. You got to take them in and show them off in different circumstances. And there's a pretty good feeling when you take a wine that you've blended home and you show it to your mum or your husband and they're like, oh, yum, that's good. I'm like, oh,
you're like, I know.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, exactly. So funny. You're always like, oh, it's not really me. I just take a step back. The vineyard does everything. And then here you are with all these little test tubes at home, sticking your nose and everything.
Well, it's funny, with Latho and I, so my amazing team in the winery, Latho, George and Denise, shout out to them because they're just incredible group of people who work really hard and love our wines. But we always kind of go round and round all these different variations of blends. And then we realise actually we're just sort of circling around these amazing kind of almost different versions of these incredible vineyards. And so we do like to kind of put them together, but think of it more like painting a picture of a site and you've got a palette of colours and lots of different colours, shapes, textures, And so how much I use of that will depend on, what we think is the best example of that vineyard. But you can't create a beautiful picture if you don't have beautiful paint colours. So, that's what the vineyard gives you.
So your single sites, I mean, I know Giant Steps produces a lot of different wines, but, your single site Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, easily the styles that you are best known for and kind of what you've built your reputation on over the years. What is special about these sites? How are they unique from each other,
Yeah, I agree. I think that the single vineyard wines that we produce at Giant Steps, they underpin everything we do. They are everything we strive for is to make the very best versions of that every year. And, that is what we're doing at Giant Steps. But what's interesting are these, Yarra Valley is quite a diverse region. From one side of the Yarra to the other, you go from 45 metres above sea level to 450 metres above sea level. You go, from as far almost southeast as Gembrook, which is, 50 minutes drive down to Yarra Glen or Dixon's Creek. So quite a variation in area, in landscape, and also there's all these interesting little pockets and rolling hills and hillsides and patches of dirt, and we've just happened to have really interesting patches of dirt from Terroir at 100 metres above sea level, which is my lowest elevated vineyard, which is sort of tucked into this southeast-facing gully, and it's just, really sheltered, and its back is to the sun, and it's just this beautiful still vineyard, which is, opens up onto this, gully, and it's just, that's a unique aspect. And then all the way up to Applejack, which is tucked up into this east face. Again, like these little patches of land that it's not one thing. It's not, it faces east. It's, it faces east. It has this really interesting kind of caramel coloured soil. It's, surrounded by rainforest. It's just kind of like, it's this whole thing that comes with terroir, which is, it's hard to pin down to one thing. And also it is, I think, about not just the place and its, environmental qualities, but also the people who look after it and the influence they have on how their farm, the biodiversity of their farm, the quality of their grapes, what we're aiming for. So it's this amazing thing. So I think they're just cool terroirs. And what is terroir? It's, combination of heaps of stuff.
Yeah. as the French would say.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a favourite one to work with?
Oh, no. They do feel like Ash, who's been with us in our vineyard team for ages, always used to say they feel like his children.
Yeah,
and they've got these different personalities.
You can't say out loud.
But also, like, you're like, that one's a princess, that one's a diva. We've got a few of those. But no, I'm proud of all of them, and they all have different, like there's no better place in Australia for a beer than the top of Sexton Vineyard. Like highest point on the whole valley floor, looks north across the whole valley, and it's just incredible, view, and it's just an amazing part of the world. You just crack a beer there as the sun's going down to the west. You think, yeah, this is grouse. And then, I've got those stories for every single one of our vineyards, And there's no favourite, but they do feel like friends or siblings or mates that you get to know over time. And every year you learn something different from them, which is fun.
What about a favourite to drink?
I don't know. I mean, I do say I've got a soft spot for Applejack just because it's the one I used to collect. But then Bastard Hill is, a new addition to our family, and this beautiful vineyard at 400 metres above sea level. It's called Bastard Hill because it's a 32 degree slope. It's a bastard of a hill. That's a vineyard that we bought in my era at Giant Steps. So I feel very connected to that vineyard. Yeah. It's something that I, certainly feel like we're yet to see the best of, which is really exciting too. The Chardonnay from Terroir, I think, is one of the most exciting wines that we make. And, Sexton's this really creative outlet for me because it's a vineyard with a bit more variation and size. So it feels really creative. So it kind of depends on the day, but it is really hard to pin down to one.
Now, all of those beautiful, amazing, unique individual sites have come together in this brand new range you've just launched called Circle of Fifths, which is right here.
Yeah, let's open it, shall we?
Yes, let's open them. But while you're doing that, how did the idea come about for these and, why now?
Well, this is a wine we've actually basically had in the winery for many years. Basically, Circle of Fifths is made up of whatever isn't going into the story that we're telling of the single vineyard from that year. So think about the analogy I just said that was we approach single vineyard blending like painting a beautiful picture. The colours that don't get used in that picture that are still really beautiful colours, where do they go? And previously you would fall out into the Yarra Valley range and, it would almost kind of feel like we were losing a little bit of that essence of quality of that vineyard. So we have always had this wine in the winery, but we've just never actually bottled it separately. last year we thought, let's do it. We put it together in the winery, like just on the bench, and we're like, that's pretty yummy. And for us, it's a really exciting opportunity because, you know, every year with our single vineyard wines, we're trying to make them better.
Yeah.
Every year you're shaving a little bit off the sculpture just to make it perfect. And we kind of approach our blending of single vineyard really like fine-tuning the dials on a radio and getting that wine into the perfect frequency, like the purest, cleanest voice of that wine or cleanest sound from that vineyard. So every year we're making those wines better, and we hope we're making them better. We're trying desperately to. And I think sometimes that means you are shaving a little bit off each year volumetrically. So this wine's helping us almost like the enabler to let us keep pushing ourselves, making those single vineyards the best expression they can be, but finding a home for the stuff that we leave behind that are qualitatively fantastic, but, you know, just aren't part of the story we're telling that year. So, yeah, it's really exciting. So it's essentially equal proportions from each of our 5 single vineyards. So,
And that just worked out that way?
We kind of like it. That was deliberate. We just didn't want to get into like the minutiae of like, this year it's 17.2%. Like, how boring. So we're like, let's keep it simple, keep it equal proportions. And then, you know, essentially it allows a lot of our customers who, love Giant Steps, love Sexton Vineyard, love Terroir Vineyard to still interact with the kind of quality of fruit that those sites produce, but at a slightly more approachable price point, because this sits about $60 on the shelf, $62 on the shelf. So,
yeah. What was the Burgundy metaphor you gave me?
Well, that's a nice way of like, almost there's, you know, if you buy, the best metaphor I reckon is, you know, there's Cru Barolo, right? So they come from single site Barolo. Then there's Barolo, and then there's Langhe, and we have all 3 of those levels. And in Burgundy, it's like, you know, there's amazing producers who have great vineyards, but, you know, potentially like the young vines might go into their regional blend or their appellation control blend. So it's like, you know, De Vergway trying their AC Chambol, which, you know, is just like young vine Musini, which is like sweet. So it's kind of like, you know, being able to like interact with those great vineyards in a different way, which is cool.
So would the blends change year on year if you got like lower yields in one vineyard or something and you just didn't have enough fruit? Or would you just drop it all down and
but we will be
produce less?
Yeah, probably we would do that. But we're deliberately trying to keep it about like the chorus, the sounds from each of the vineyards coming together.
Yeah.
So I hadn't really thought about it. I was getting this one in bottle and sell this one and then I'll deal with the next one.
See what happens next year.
Exactly.
Well, do you want to explain what the name means? Because you kind of been talking around it anyway without actually just saying it. So.
Yeah, so the name Giant Steps, which is the winery name, comes as a reference to the Coltrane jazz album, really critical jazz, like one of the albums that everyone talks about when they think about jazz. And Circle of Fifths is just a reference back to music theory. So it's a rule of music theory that allows musicians to understand how to put a chord progression together. So it's, you know, less about the clean sounds and the pure tones of our single sites and more about the kind of chorus of the chord, playing the chord. So we kind of joke around in the winery the other day. We were saying like the Yarra Valley, which is our regional wine, that's like the pop single that gets you on the radio and gets stuck in your head. You know, the single site wines, they're like concept albums, decant it, think about it, collect it, try it over 10 years, do whatever you want. And this is like greatest hits, you know, kind of like delicious, hits all the points. Music's an incredibly important part of life at Giant Steps, not just because it's on all day, every day at the winery, but it's part of our brand. It's part of who we are. So,
provider of many metaphors.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah, and I was looking before. It was 180 songs in your Circle of Hits playlist? It's on Spotify.
Dude, we have so many playlists. It's a weird thing. We do one every year for vintage, and we send it out to all of our harvest staff that come in for just about 6 weeks of harvest. So it's quite a broad church. You get a really like broad selection of music. So the 2025 vintage playlist is like, yeah, it's quite a fun listen. But then we've got like an Applejack blending playlist. We've got Giant Steps on tour. We've got all these little we love doing it. It's sort of like a little thing that we do every year.
That's really funny.
Yeah, which is cool.
What do you think is harder to make, single vineyard wines or blends?
Oh, I feel like there's more suspension in blends. You've got more, lumps and bumps in when you're really restricted to one single site. Yeah. But I think there's a part of me, maybe because I'm a big fan of the wines from Burgundy, that feels like that is the truest expression of great wine comes from a known plot of land. Whereas, that's what I love about this wine is that, it's got a bit more breadth to take the tough years. If you've got a really cold year in the Upper Yarra where you've got high acid, you might be able to find in this wine the breadth and texture from the Lower Yarra, which will kind of offset it. Whereas single vineyard wines are harder because you're a slave to what Mother Nature gave you. So it's the eternal debate. It's the Burgundy versus Bordeaux debate. You have to ask your next guest that. I think he'd like to answer that too.
Well, a regular question. And would you say that where the single vineyard wines are kind of quite expressive, obviously, of their site, these are actually more expressive of the Yarra Valley as a region?
Yeah, and maybe the house style too.
Maybe the house style?
Yeah, because often the wines that we, especially for the Pinot, the wines that we kind of shave off might be the batches that are going to be like too outrageous. So, for example, with Pinot, we do quite a lot of whole bunch fermentation at giant steps. We really like using whole bunch as a way to like lift fragrance, build texture, give you this lovely kind of glycerol, sweetness to the wine. But they also can be like very polarizing, those wines that are fermented with 100% whole bunches. So sometimes the wines that we like shave off are like or only half of, so let's say there's 6 barrels of whole bunch from this one block at Applejack. Maybe we will try all of them going into the blend, half of them going into the blend, 2 of them going into whatever. So they're often the ones that, you use almost like seasoning, but they're not all going to make it because they're too outrageous. So like this wine, Circle of Fifth Pinot, has like 42% whole bunch in it. Yeah, because it's got all these like batches that we love, but when you're trying to tell a pure story of a vineyard, like you are with single site wines, you don't want any winemaking to kind of get in the way of that. Whereas sometimes, sometimes whole bunch does that. So we kind of have shaved those little batches off. So
what's the 2%? Is that just a little bit extra pinch of salt?
Yeah, totally. But literally that's how like minutiae we get to in single vineyard blending. Like it might be like half of this barrique, which would be like 100 litres or, whatever. This little bit of new oak or, there's a lot of different variants that we take. So each of our single vineyards is blended over the space of like a day, right? We'll taste every single barrel and we'll kind of highlight our favourites and then we'll try basically different combinations of all those barrels. And then this is when it hits like full fever dream pitch and my team are like, oh. And I'll be like, can I try that? But with half of this and blah, 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 blah. And then we get all the way out to like 24 variations. Normally what we do is then crystallise that down to sort of 3 finalists that we then look at the next day totally blind. So we we remake the blends up the next day. We come in clean, fresh, had a coffee, had a walk around the winery, and we will look at them and be completely guided by what the best wine is, not the most volume, which is hard for me because I'm sometimes like, I want to make the most volume because it's going to make the most amount of money for my business. But you've got to remind yourself that you're trying to make the best wines. You want to do a good job and you want to, you want to sell the most books and that's the equivalent of making the most of each of our single vineyards. We're so lucky they sell out every year, but you don't ever want that commercial side to get in the way of making the very best examples of those sites. We do that every year and we will do, 3 finalists and sometimes the difference between blend 1 and blend 25 is double the volume or half the volume or a quarter of the volume. And we're making that final decision based on quality. And then this wine allows us to keep doing that because it catches those little bits that we shave off in the journey, which is cool.
Cool. Let's look at the wines.
Yeah, sure.
So, what are we tasting?
Every wine at Giant Steps is handpicked. Every batch of fruit is handpicked. And then we whole bunch press the Chardonnay the day after picking when it's nice and cool. And then wild ferment in barrel. So all of our Chardonnays do have time in barrel, but there's not a lot of new oak. So I don't think you see a massive influence of new oak. You just get the lovely texture and body from wines fermented in barrel. The thing I love about this wine is, its expression of the Yarra Valley region and that 2024 vintage, which was like, there was a lot of heat spikes in 24, but relatively easygoing vintage. Lots of citrus, lots of grapefruit, ginger, a little bit of like, almond meal, but really nice, refreshing acidity. There's a little bit of like this sort of like wet rock character in that wine, which I find like, it's almost a mineral character, but it's sort of part of the perfume of the wine as well, which I find like, I really like Chardonnays that are savoury. I don't like too much fruit weight in my Chardonnays. I like savouriness and minerality and, tension, but, still with body and flavour, not kind of completely locked down by, acidity or reduction. So that kind of savoury edge that the wine has, I really love. So pretty tasty little glass of wine.
Delicious. And how's it been received? Because I've only just hit the market. Was it, mid-June?
Yeah, really well. It's been really fun. We've done like a little roadshow through visiting some of our best customers and just saying like we're going to spin some records and have some salty snacks and like try the wines. It's been really fun. So my last city was last week in Adelaide. Shout out Adelaide. It was pretty fun afternoon, and it was cool. It's been really fun to bring it out, and our customers are like, we've got an amazing customer base, not just from a wholesale, sommeliers and owners of wine shops and stuff like that, but also people have been buying from the winery for ages, and it was really fun to celebrate with them because they're always keen for a drink.
It was a really fun photo shoot. We were sent some of the press images too, and it's all like, I love that all the team was in the photos.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. It was so nice. Often when you get, professional photos sent for a story
talent.
Or anything, it's talent.
Yeah.
And it was just you.
Yeah, it was our team.
You and your buddies.
Yeah, it was a super fun day actually. It was like, to be honest, you don't become a winemaker or a viticulturalist to do photo shoots, but I had to really convince the squad to get around it, but they loved it in the end. We had heaps of fun. That energy is part of who we are at Giant Steps. There's this like, really interesting kind of two sides to our winery. We've got, this super obsessive, must do the highest expression of our single sites, really kind of burrow into the detail of each of those single vineyards. And then we also have this like, side of us which is fun and loud, and there's loud music, and the coffee's hot and the beer's cold, and that's really like what it feels like to be at Giant Steps. Is we're trying to capture that fun,
the real duality to the brand. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, it's been really interesting. The things I'm most proud of is like there's no jazz hands here. It's like we are who we are, and we're really proud of it. And we're really proud of our vineyards. There's no magic to our winemaking. There's no smoke and mirrors. It's just great sites, well looked after by the teams.
And a lot of decaying beakers.
Yeah, and some freaky beakers on the... and yes, exactly.
That's the secret.
Exactly, maybe.
Oh, should we have a look at the Pinot? And then we'll talk about what's next.
2024 Pinot. It's about, as I said before, about 40% whole bunch, which is kind of cool because I love the lift that wine gets because of that whole cluster fermentation. The thing I love about Pinot is its perfume, its detail, its delicacy, its sweetness, its texture. And so Giant Steps, our whole winery is actually built for making premium Pinot. We've got a gravity flow winery. All these wines are bottled, unfined, unfiltered by gravity.
What is a gravity flow winery for people who might not know?
Basically, we have a winery where all of our tanks are set up at different levels. So rather than having to pump our wine or use mechanisation, we are using gravity to do a lot of our movements. So, for example, during fermentation, all of our fermenters are 3 metres above ground level to do, normally what you would do in a single level winery would be to do pump overs. So bringing the juice from the bottom via a pump and then splashing it over the top of the skins to kind of homogenise, but also,
tannin
extract
and texture,
tannin and texture. Or you would plunge, like mash the stuff. But for us, what we do is just literally drain out from 3 metres above ground level to ground level and then return using gravity as well. So you're not adding any mechanisation. And sort of one of those things when before I worked at Giant Steps, I thought, I don't understand. Do they have much evidence for it? And honestly, truly believe it is the key to the Giant Steps wines.
Just must make the whole process so much more gentle.
It's gentle, exactly. So you're preserving all that stuff you love about Pinot. You preserve the perfume, you preserve the texture, you preserve all those sort of really delicate sort of long chain fatty acids and things that give Pinot that little thing that makes you look deeper.
Yeah.
Being as gentle as possible has been really important for our winemaking style. And
you can just see it in the glass. Like the wine just looks silky.
Yeah, and also not finding or filtering our Pinots is really important. Yep. We're not pushing them through a filter medium at really high pressures. We're just literally letting them settle in tank and then bottle. So, that's about... Sometimes the wines will have a slight cloudiness to them that, if they are unfiltered, we don't see them very often in our wines because they settle quite well before we bottle. And some of that, really fine turbidity lees. I wonder what that brings to the tannins and to the body of the wine.
Are there certain vineyards that produce better whole bunches? I don't know if that's a silly question, but do you know what I mean?
There are certainly vineyards that lend themselves more to whole bunch. Applejack's a great example of that. And there's multiple things at play, whether it's, the site selection, but also the clones the site happens to have. So some clones of Pinot are better for whole cluster than others. But Applejack's a great example. It's sort of tucked up into this east-facing slope of the Gladysdale Ranges, and there's just temperate rainforest all behind you. And so the in the morning, the sun rises, hits that vineyard, warms it up gently, evaporates any dew. It's sort of warm, gentle morning sun. And then in the afternoon, you're protected by that rainforest to the west. So it's got that sort of gentle, warm mornings and cooled afternoons because of the rainforest behind you. And also that, that amazing body of nature behind the vineyard will bring this cooling kind of part to the site in the afternoon. So that vineyard, therefore, you get slightly longer time on the vine to ripen before you pick, and you get sort of more time for the tannins and the stems to lignify. And we just find better stem ripeness, and therefore we can do more whole bunch at Applejack. So it depends on the vineyard, but also the clones. Like we've got a lot of MV6 planted there, which is the Aussie clone that we should all be really proud of. It's a beautiful clone, and they give you these little hand grenade, like traditional pine cone bunches of Pinot. And if you put that through a destemmer, it just like mashes. Yeah. But they do beautiful whole bunch fermentation. So a lot of MV6 planted there, which is cool. Also part of it too.
Yeah, it's awesome. Any more bastard hills in the Yarra that you'd like to acquire, or even like outside of the Yarra?
Yarra, I feel we now have, 5 single vineyard sites. We're really about consolidating and, frankly, replanting some of those and reworking some of those sites, especially Bastard Hill. There's a lot of redevelopment happening on our vineyards, so really trying to get that completed before we go to Bunanas in the Yarra Valley. But trying to consolidate Yarra. Tassie is always, in the back of my mind, and there's some amazing parts of the world down there that, almost undiscovered, which are really exciting. But yeah, there's lots happening down there. One day, hopefully for us, we just got to get ourselves there. But it's fun. It's fun. We've just bought a new winery in the last couple of years as well. So there's been a bit of work just getting that renovated and set up for, the gravity and all that sort of stuff. So there's been a few things happening.
Where's that, sorry?
In Yarra Glen.
Oh, yeah, nice. So just within the region, just kind of expanding operations.
Yeah, we bought a new winery for Giant Steps.
Right,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Exactly. You're like, huh? No. Yeah.
Penfolds have vineyards in, France and China now. Would you ever do that? With Giant Steps?
Yeah.
What would the dream region be?
Oh, Burgundy? Can I say Champagne or what?
You can say whatever you like.
Well, it's funny. I've never made wine in Burgundy, but a good friend of mine, Jim Chatto from the Huon Valley, he goes over there once a year and he just loves it. He gets an opportunity to be, around these amazing vineyards that we've all idolised for our whole professional career. I really love Oregon as well. That part of the world I feel very at home there. When I come from the Yarra Valley to Oregon, that's really beautiful. But maybe I'll head to the Loire and make some Chenin Blanc. Who knows? I'm
just completely off
base. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. All right, well, I'm going to finish with some quickfire questions.
Ooh, exciting.
You don't have to be quick. You can answer slowly as you like. But, if you weren't a winemaker, what would you be?
Well, back in the day, I would have said a Broadway star, but I'm a big musical theatre fan. I love music, so I love going to the theatre, but probably something on stage. But maybe it'd be nice to be down in the orchestral pit too. So maybe something with music.
Chorus. Mm-hmm. What are you drinking at the moment?
At home, a lot of margaritas. We also drink Paper Planes in winter, which is a really beautiful cocktail with Amaro, Aperol, lemon juice, bit of bourbon. It's delicious, really nice over winter. Wine-wise, again, Chenin Blanc, really going on a Chenin grind at the moment.
Yeah, great.
Which has been really fun.
Where are you drinking at the moment?
At home, we're drinking in Melbourne. There's a lot, everywhere you stumble on in Melbourne's amazing. Apollo Inn, probably for a cocktail in Melbourne. Also, in front of Marion, no joke, just sit there and it's the best people watching in Melbourne too. City Wine Shop, same thing. Yep. So I enjoy the, recreation that is having a glass of wine and watching the humans.
Yep.
In Sydney, probably my favourite bar in Australia at the moment is Cantina OK, which is this cool little mezcal bar in Sydney, which is, one of the best places to grab a drink, I reckon.
Yeah, great. And what's your favourite sub $30 wine or good value wine?
Ooh, in general, probably the aromatic white category. Yeah. We drink a lot of Semillon at home. So just the Broken Wood, Hunter Valley Sem, which is $28, I reckon, on their website. And the Tyrrell's version, just Hunter Sem, delicious. And if you're, clever enough and you want to stick some at home, leave it for a few years, yum. Probably the best value category in Australian wine, I think, at the moment.
Absolutely. What's the most you've ever paid for a bottle of wine?
Well, I can't. I feel so. I'm in this cool little wine group that my mentor and great friend Tom Carson puts together. Once a year we catch up and he collects all this wine. He spends the whole year collecting this wine, and the buy-in is money to attend there. But through that, I've tried some of the most expensive bottles of wine.
Wow.
But you're sharing, 30 mils with 15 other mates from the wine industry, and it's like it feels like that you're trying something that you're never going to try again. But I probably don't know if I could narrow it down to one through that tasting.
a lot. We'll just leave it there. Do you have a wine guilty pleasure? Like, is there a style that's maybe not trendy that you like, or do you, add jalapenos to your Savvy Bee?
I'm down for whatever gets the job done. Like, whatever people want to do to their wines. Like, I love I'm not guilty about this, frankly, but my favourite thing is rosé in summer, and I'll fill the ice up to the brim of the wine glass, rosé, sparkling water. And you can, you have it on the beach. It's delicious.
And we're pretty low alcohol too if you've got some sparkling water in there.
100%.
Session.
And yeah, it's a little sipper when you're and you drink it out of an enamel cup on the beach and have a chip and you're happy.
Single
honestly.
chip.
And I feel like
another shout out for the salty snack. It's a recurring theme.
Yeah, I'm going to get a T-shirt made about it. No, I think one of the things with wine is we can get a bit in our own head about how you consume it. This stunning stemware is amazing, but it also tastes good however you want to drink it. If you want to put Coke in it, great. Do whatever you want. As long as you're drinking wine, I'm cool with it.
What's the oldest wine you've ever tried?
Probably in the Len Evans tutorial, the week I did it in 2014, we had some 1890 Madeiras, which were amazing.
Wow.
And I've had some very old Sauternes before. Those wines I feel are the most memorable old wines because they just hold their age really beautifully. Yeah, they were pretty cool. I love thinking about that with wine, in my previous winemaking life at Seppelt in Great Western, we had a bunch of wines from the 40s and 50s, and that were sort of bottled on site and then stored in the tunnels that run underneath this winery in Great Western. It's one of the most interesting, tours you can do of a winery in Australia is to see these places. And it's so fascinating. It used to freak me out as a 23-year-old working in that winery. So this wine was put here not that long after World War II, and it was put in this tunnel, and now we're pulling it out and we're opening it over dinner.
It's crazy.
And you're like, what was life like for those humans that put that there, and it's almost like wine helps you time capsule back to the time and place it was made. They are a moment in time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you have a bucket list wine, like a wine you haven't tried that you really want to?
Yeah. I haven't tried I've never had a bottle of Terroir wine before. So from Burgundy, and, she's probably the most, some of those Terroir wines are the most, sought after collectible Burgundies on the planet. Philip Rich talks about a 1978 Richebourg that one day I'll try. But yeah, exactly.
All right, I'm putting you on a plane tomorrow and you're going to a wine region. Where are you going?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm not sure if I'm really craving a beach holiday. So maybe I'm going to Sicily. I'm doing Etna Bianco. Nerello Mascalese, delicious. I'm on a beach.
Have you been before?
Yes, it was very fun.
Okay.
But if I'm going for wine, I really love Barolo. I love going up to Piedmont. The food's yummy. The wines are delicious. The people are beautiful. The landscape is lovely. Yeah, that's probably one of those two.
Now, before we finish, have you got anything to plug?
Yeah, come out to the tasting room. If you're in Victoria, come out to our beautiful little tasting room on the main street of Hillsville. My beautiful crew there will look after you, taste some wines, have a bit of fun. We're lucky at Giant Steps. We sell into every state in Victoria, so keep an eye out for us on your local wine lists and bottle shops. And this new release is really exciting, so hopefully you guys can grab a bottle or two to share with some mates. Please enjoy.
And where can we find you on socials?
The winery at Giant Steps Winery, which is a good way to sort of see what's going on there. Sarah, who works in our team, she's amazing at sharing our stories, and you can hear what's going on in the vineyard. And through there, you'll find me somewhere. But yeah, it's been fun to sit and have a chat of wine.
Yeah, thank you so much for being my first ever guest.
Pleasure.
On the relaunched Halliday podcast, and congratulations on everything.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Halliday Wine Companion Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe so you never miss one. Love it? Leave a review and share it with friends. For more, visit winecompanion.com.au or follow us on Instagram @winecompanion.